Nintendo really better bring some top-tier games in to convince me to get a Switch 2. Alright, that one's pretty good, but it's also one that people weren't really expecting to see. Okay, but those are third-party games. What about the first-party? Okay, I'm in. Where the hell's my credit card? As another turn of the console cycle passes, Nintendo's given us an hour-long presentation on their new Nintendo Switch 2. With a launch date set for June 5th, 2025 and a price tag of $450, the usual pre-console questions began to fester in my head. Is the Switch 2 worth the price? How much has been added and improved from its predecessor? Which of my organs will I have to sell to even think about affording it in today's economy? All very thought-provoking questions with convoluted answers, so let's start by breaking down what was in the Direct and the trailer that came before it, because I really need a break from editing Sonic videos for a bit. With a $150 increase in the price tag over the original, there were bound to be hardware improvements. We already had a decent idea of the peripheral changes, but the Direct gave us some real concrete info. The screen is physically bigger, managing to make a significant portion of the population jealous with its 7.9 inches, but what really got my attention was the 1080p resolution with an upper limit of 120 FPS in handheld mode. Only in compatible games though, make sure you remember that, it might save you from potential disappointment in the future. I'm willing to bet that Nintendo saw the success of the Steam Deck and knew they had to hit a threshold with the graphical improvements. It also probably benefited them to have a skeleton in the form of the original Switch, which they tweaked based on how much each feature of the original was used. The screen is LCD, which is a slight bummer, but I'm willing to accept the compromise since it keeps costs down to a degree. It also does have a high dynamic range option, which will help in overall vibrancy. It's certainly no OLED, but it's at least the best of what they have in LCD, which will tide people over until the OLED version inevitably releases in the future. The Joy-Con 2, or as I like to call them, the Joyful-Con. Who the hell scoffed at that? You think of a better name then. I like the upgrades for him. The magnetic attachment is great. I really wasn't a fan of the sliding mechanism, not to mention the fact that people managed to attach them the wrong way around. Not really the best idea for a console that kids also use. In contrast, the magnets are straightforward. You just need to match the colors, rip to anyone who's colorblind. The only slight concern that I have is that since the port is central and not offset, there could be accidental cases of people, mainly children, trying to attach the Joy-Cons upside down and potentially damaging the connection pins. I'm hoping that Nintendo has some safeguards beyond the colors and symbols. I'm guessing that since it's magnetic, trying to attach them upside down will make the magnets repel each other or something of the sort. I'm glad they made the control sticks and the SLSR buttons bigger. It'll definitely make the single sideways Joy-Con control scheme a little less finicky. The real eye catch for me was mouse controls. People suspected that this would be a feature from the teaser trailer, and it's just so cool to see. Forget the PC trying to compete with console gaming, Nintendo's going for the head from the opposite direction. I'm gonna guess that this part here is a sensor similar to your typical mouse. There's a lot of potential here, especially since they managed to have mouse controls work in combination with the gyro controls. Their tech demo game for it feels like it barely scratches the surface. We can have more intricate FPS games, a version of Minecraft similar to PC. I know a friend who's ready to waste their life away on competitive Splatoon. But what I really want, especially now that they no longer have any excuses left, is Kid Icarus Uprising for the Switch 2. You hear me, Nintendo? Do it. One small issue that comes to mind is wear and tear. That footage of the bare Joy-Con sliding across the surface made me consider anti-anxiety medication. Yeah, I'm gonna bet that the wrist straps are gonna be very important for using mouse controls, and it might also be worth considering a mouse pad. This isn't a 10th grade physics class, you cannot just ignore friction here. They're also advertising better audio quality from the speakers, which is fine, I'll have to judge it hands-on to confirm. On the opposite end, the Switch 2 also has a microphone for game chat, and they're alleging that the noise cancelling will drown out background noise. We'll get into this later, don't you worry. Another feature they're talking about is 3D audio, which uses a stereo channel panning effect to create a surround sound-like environment, which is cool. It could be useful in FPS or open world games, to name a few. The kickstand is nice and stable. The second USB-C port is appreciated since it makes charging and connecting webcams and potentially other peripherals a lot easier, but the next big thing that I locked onto was the storage.
Nintendo Switch 2 comes with 256 gigabytes of internal storage.
Finally!
The sigh of relief that I had when I heard the Switch 2 would have 256 gigabytes of storage would have given Superman a run for his money. I'm gonna be honest, the Switch having 32 gigabytes of internal storage was pathetic. Some people will tell you that 32 gigabytes is fine and that you can use SD cards, just like some people will try to convince you that the Earth is flat. Don't fall for it. 8 times the storage is a big step up, but there is a small catch. The Nintendo Switch 2 is only compatible with microSD Express cards, and they've made it explicitly clear that the microSD cards that worked with the original Switch won't work with the Switch 2. Is it the worst thing? Not really, it's just a little disappointing that I can't repurpose the stack of SD cards that I had to buy for the original. That's a lie, I only needed 3. Though the principle still stands. But since the console already has some big storage and Nintendo had the sense to provide a save data transfer feature between consoles, it's an acceptable compromise. The Pro Controller 2 uses the original's framework and adds an audio jack, GLGR buttons which you can map existing buttons to, my dominant left-handed I thank you for the accessibility, it only took 7 years, and of course the brand new button they were hyping up, the C button. So, remember how I said that there was going to be a microphone that was going to be used for in-game chat? Well, the C button is for changing the settings of said game chat, including screen sharing, mic settings, and webcam settings if you decide to use one. Gotta say, this is definitely a lot easier to use compared to jumping through the hoops of getting a capture card to set up a Discord screen share. I'm sure there is a bit of casual appeal, mainly for team games like Splatoon, but it feels like a godsend for streaming and recording multiplayer stuff. Also, Nintendo, being the transparent and generous company that they are, decided to use the live stream here to give us a real-time experience of the audio latency.
Hey guys, I got a call coming right now, so I'll be right back, yeah?
Game chat can integrate with the parental controls app, and parents can choose which friends their kids can talk to online. Wait, when did Bowser Jr. become friends with Mario? It's also important to note that a Nintendo Switch Online membership will be needed for game chat eventually. Everyone can use it initially for an unspecified amount of time, but NSO memberships will be required in the future. The Switch 2's dock actually surprised me a lot more than I thought it would. I wasn't sure if Nintendo would push for 4K, but they managed to make it shake. The ports are the same as the Switch OLED dock, with the interior having a USB-C, HDMI, and LAN cable port. It also has an internal cooling system, which was expected since the graphical output is fairly heavy this time. The cartridges are about the same as the original Switch's game cartridges, except that they're colored red. Since the Switch 2 is going to be backwards compatible, it makes sense that the cartridges are the same design, with the color being how we tell them apart. Well, that and one more thing that we'll get to later. Overall, I'm a big fan of the hardware changes. When the Switch 1 was announced, they put a lot of focus onto novelty aspects like the IR sensor. But with the Switch 2, it feels like they've honed in on the practical and sensible aspects of the hardware while removing things that didn't work, like the infrared sensor. I guess the only people really missing out with that change are fans of 1-2 Switch? Yeah, I think I can live with that. Speaking of games, let's segue into talking about the new features and updates for the software. Besides game chat, one of the big updates for NSO was the GameCube Virtual Console. They're also selling a wireless GameCube-style controller with a chat button, and that's all we know about it for now. It's funny because we've come quite the long way in terms of portable gaming.
We put a handle on Nintendo GameCube so it could be carried around.
The main software for any console is obviously the games, but there is one thing to cover before looking at the titles. Sit down and grab your snacks, or your keyboard and phone and start typing out a comment, cause I'm about to get controversial. With the announcement of new games, we've also gotten the announcement of new game prices, and it's caused quite the uproar on the internet. Before we get into this mess, let's clarify a few things. The extra charges for the physical copies aren't happening in the US for now, and this is based on all the American retailers that I checked. The price hike is happening in the EU and possibly the UK. I haven't found a source for the UK digital prices yet. As of right now, the only game that is listed at $80 is Mario Kart World. Now, with that info in mind, the question is, should Mario Kart World and potential future games be worth $80? After a lot of thought, I can say the answer is yes. Hear me out. Many of you would have probably seen a US inflation converter in the replies of people complaining about the price. Without turning it into an economics lesson, the idea is that games would be a lot more expensive now if they were adjusted for inflation rates throughout the years. And the current pricing is because they've caught up to inflation, especially due to a certain virus devastating global economies and the T word. The truth is, game development has gotten a lot more complicated, requiring more time, effort, and resources. The same way a gamer has to deal with inflation and terrible prices, an individual video game developer does too, and paying salaries, buying equipment, etc. is going to keep getting more expensive whether you're a company or an indie dev. The reason I say this is because beyond the billion-dollar company, there are people who are working on these games. That's not to say I fully agree with this price tag though. Nintendo's offering a digital bundle of the Switch 2 with Mario Kart World at $500. On one hand, it's a $30 price cut, which is nice, but on the other hand, it kinda makes the profit margins a little suspicious to me. Now, this bundle could very much be a loss leader, so it's too early to fully judge things. I'm willing to be charitable if the majority of future releases are at $70, but I also very much encourage the people making noise about the $80 price tag. Because companies don't often pick the lowest price they can afford, they tend to pick the highest price they can get away with. Man, that should go on a t-shirt. Then there's the matter of the physical games themselves and Nintendo's new idea, game key cards. To put it simply, it's a card that doesn't have the game itself, but has a digital key which downloads the game onto the system. After that, you need to insert the card into the system anytime you want to play the game. Essentially, it's a digital game with the concept of a physical one. Gonna be honest, I didn't like it when I saw it then, and I'm still not a fan now because it feels like it's just taking away a lot of the security that a physical game offers. It's kinda made better by the fact that you only need the internet when downloading it and it not being system locked. I guess the point of these is to have huge games on cards without extra manufacturing prices, but I'm also willing to bet that it's an attempt to make pirating games more difficult. In the end, if you're going digital and are okay with the price, have fun. If you're going physical and don't want to buy game key cards, just make sure you take a glance at the back of the case first. With that out of the way, let's get into something more positive. Mario Kart World was the opener for the Direct, and looking past the price, it looks fantastic, and they have real grinding!
I'm the coolest.
They're experimenting with the whole open world concept by letting us go off-road, and the new Grand Prix courses are all in one big map in which you have to drive from one course to the other as part of the race, which is pretty neat. They have the new absolutely chaotic 24-player mode and knockout races, which is basically an elimination racing style. The free roam also looks great. It gives me the same vibes as the plain free roam from Wii Sports Resort. The new 3D adventure platformer game is surprisingly a Donkey Kong game in the form of Donkey Kong Bananza. That is such a top tier pun, I'm so proud. I'm loving the Mario Odyssey style combined with the fact that you can bulldoze through just about anything, even the ground. It's also apparently adapting some of the 2D Donkey Kong Country style platforming. It just looks like a wholesome fun game overall. There's not much to say about Kirby Air Riders other than the fact that it's being developed by our Lord and Savior. It's a Kirby racing game. They didn't really show much. This is all I got. We're getting a new Dynasty Warriors style Zelda game from AAA Game Company. Age of Imprisonment, which is going to focus on early Hyrule and the sealing of Ganondorf. I'm not that much of a fan of Dynasty Warrior games, it's just not for me, but I am interested in seeing the more detailed story they have planned based on the Tears of the Kingdom flashbacks. One thing I'm really excited about is the third-party software lineup. Obviously, the main show was the new From Software game, The Duskbloods, but I'd just like to point out we're getting some real heavy hitters otherwise too. Elden Ring, Hades 2, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Hollow Knight Silksong. This one probably sent the fanbase into cardiac arrest considering how much they've aged while waiting for it. Hitman, Yakuza 0. It looks really good and I can wholeheartedly be happy since we don't really know the prices yet. The last big thing to talk about is the Nintendo Switch 2 editions of games. Basically, certain games are going to be upgraded and released for the Nintendo Switch 2 in the form of graphics, a few features, and some games are going the extra mile and adding in new content. Now, if you have the original Switch versions, you can upgrade to the Switch 2 editions by paying a price that's less than the full game price. I appreciate the option, and there are some games that I want to see with updated graphics, but I'm going to reserve full judgment until I know how much it actually costs to upgrade. Oh, right, there's also basically a console manual that you can buy in the form of a game. It costs $10, but I really don't think anyone should pay for it, especially when YouTube exists. So, at the end of it all, will I be buying a Switch 2 at launch? Well, no, I still haven't gotten an asking price on any of my organs, but I will probably end up buying one at some point in the future. If you're a fan of Nintendo and have the money to spare, I'd say this is a pretty good upgrade. If you like this video and want to see more, I've got some Sonic video essays in a similar style, and I'm working on more video essays and Let's Plays in the future. If you like the sound of that, liking and subscribing will let me know that's what you want to see, and maybe I can get closer to affording a Switch 2 with the ad revenue and get to making videos on the new releases. Otherwise, hopefully I'll be seeing you in another video. Till then,